and welcome to Edison TV. My name's Vivienne Parry, and in this edition of Open House, we're going to showcase the work of Medherant. Medherant is a British company which has developed an innovative technology for transdermal drug delivery. I'm delighted to be joined by their CEO, John Burt. John, hello.
Hello, hi.
So let's start with the background to all of this. Why should we give a drug transdermally?
Well, transdermal drug delivery offers some benefits over traditional oral therapy with small molecules. So you've got the advantage of avoiding first-pass metabolism through the liver, avoiding potentially gastrointestinal side effects. You've got better dose control compared to some other alternative transdermal delivery systems, such as creams and ointments and gels. And you can get a smoother drug exposure profile because of the release from the transdermal patch through the skin. So you've got a smoother profile and smoother exposure to the drug compared to potentially the burst associated with oral drug delivery.
So that's a big advantage, isn't it? Because it means you can actually perhaps give a higher dose if you're not worried about toxicity through the liver, which may be a better therapeutic range.
Yes, exactly. You've got the potentially an enhanced therapeutic window because of the transdermal drug delivery, avoiding, as you say, potentially those toxicities and the exposure. If you've got a smooth exposure profile, a better exposure profile, yeah, you've got the ability to reduce those side effects and therefore enhance the efficacy of certain drugs.
So basically, we're talking patches, aren't we? And we know about patches, their use in HRT, and their use in smoking cessation programs for nicotine delivery. Why are those not state of the art? What's the problem with them?
So there are a number of limitations with some of the alternative patch technologies. There's a limit to how much of the formulation, that's the drug plus any permeation enhancing excipients, can be loaded into the patch. So there's a limit there in terms of the drug loading you can get. Quite often the adhesives are not ideal adhesives actually for skin adhesion. You may see the patches coming off and therefore impacting upon the efficacy, but also you can then get patches transferring to other members of your household. Obviously that's a safety risk if they transfer to someone and that unintended individual gets the exposure to the drug. And with some adhesives also you get a phenomenon what's called cold flow. And cold flow is where the adhesive would flow from the patch onto the skin and remain on the skin when the patch is removed. You may be familiar with this. It's kind of typically the black rings you see with
the kind of tide line, isn't it?
The tide line, exactly. And there is a quality issue associated with the product. It's potentially an issue in terms of you've got the exposure maintained from the drug in that adhesive, so you've not got the control of the release from the patch. And what we can offer is a patch where we can achieve higher drug loading. We don't have cold flow associated with our adhesive. And so because it's a cross-linked matrix in our adhesive, so we avoid the cold flow and we get excellent adhesion. So our patches adhere very well to the skin and they avoid that risk of premature detachment, and we get a high level of the drug released, and so there's lower residual drug left in the patch, which obviously is an issue from a safety perspective. You don't want unnecessary drug left in a patch, but it's also from an economic perspective, you're maximizing the drug that's actually delivered, the bioavailability of the drug from the patch.
Yeah, that phenomenon of patches coming off, I do remember somebody writing to me when I was working on a newspaper once to say what would happen to him because he'd been wearing inadvertently his wife's HRT patch for 3 or 4 days. But anyway, just going back to Medherant and its foundation, tell me what started you off on this particular track and how did Medherant come about?
So the company was founded out of the University of Warwick and the work of Professor David Hamilton in the Department of Chemistry. He's a polymer chemist, and you're looking at adhesives and adhesives which would be suitable for a better next generation of transdermal drug delivery patches. And so the company was founded as a University of Warwick spin-out company, had early funding support from Mercia Asset Management, who've continued to be a significant investor for the company. And so the company was founded by David Hamilton. And really with this concept of using a novel adhesive for the development patches. Over the years now, we've developed the adhesive, developed our own proprietary adhesive to the point where we've got an excellent adhesive now that we're using in our development programs and those with our partners.
And where are you planning to use this transdermal patch? What's your strategy here?
So our lead development program is currently approaching the first clinical trial, and it's based on Varenicline, which is the active drug substance in Pfizer's Chantix product. So this is the leading pharmacotherapy for smoking cessation, and it's the most effective and the most cost-effective pharmacotherapy for smoking cessation. And so we're utilizing that active drug substance in creating a patch, a TEPI Patch product using Varenicline. And we anticipate being in the clinic with that program later in this first part of 2021. So as well as developing our own programs, we are also working with partners to enable them to develop transdermal products utilizing our adhesive and our transdermal delivery technology.
So TEPI, I've established, doesn't actually stand for anything. It's actually the Kazakh word for skin. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
So we all come away from this knowing much more about Medherant, but also that TEPI is the Kazakh word for skin. So what's the timeline for all of this? So tell me about the Varenicline first.
So with that program, we've taken advice from the regulatory agencies, and we see the potential for an accelerated development program through to registration, because we're utilizing an already well-established, safe and efficacious active drug substance, but delivered as an alternative dosage form via transdermal drug delivery. So there's an accelerated clinical development pathway. So we are not having to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of the drug substance per se, but looking at demonstrating the effectiveness of our adhesive and TEPI technology in delivering that drug substance. So phase 1 program will be particularly focused on pharmacokinetics and demonstrating the bioavailability of Varenicline via our transdermal drug delivery system, and then demonstrating and confirming the efficacy based on transdermal drug delivery compared to oral delivery. What we've already done is preclinically demonstrated in preclinical studies that we do get systemic exposure of Varenicline utilizing our patches, and therefore we've got the confidence now to be moving into the clinic. So it's a fairly rapid program that can take us through to registration for the Varenicline product.
And do you then anticipate going into other markets that already have established patch usage, for instance, hormone replacement therapy?
Hormone replacement therapy is not an area that we are actively considering, but there are other therapeutic areas that we would consider as we look to expand our own portfolio of products. A number of CNS conditions have already got established the principle for using patches, such as within Alzheimer's, there's the rivastigmine patch already established, but other products that could benefit from transdermal drug delivery. So there's a range of CNS conditions which could benefit from transdermal drug delivery formulations.
And there's particular issues there. You need those very gentle adhesives if you are working with the oldest old, because their skin is so fragile.
Exactly. You want a patch, an adhesive that adheres well, but yes, can be removed relatively simply and painlessly from the patients, particularly as you say, the elderly patients with fragile skin.
Now, at the beginning, you were thinking about the pain market. Is that something that you've moved away from now?
In terms of our own development activities, we've moved away from pain. The company had previously developed an ibuprofen patch, and there's still some partnering interest in that program, but we're not pursuing that ourselves. But there are a number of consumer health patch products which are available currently, but there are potentially improvements that could be made to those products utilizing our technology, and so that's an area that we are exploring.
So the one thing that people do know about patches is that there's been a huge problem over the last couple of years with HRT patches, and that was, I think, related to the manufacture of the adhesive. So who is manufacturing your adhesive and where is it manufactured?
So the adhesive is the core component of our patches, and so we've developed and we're manufacturing the adhesive ourselves at the University of Warwick Science Park to be able to utilize that adhesive in the clinical trial program, and we're formulating the plans ultimately for commercial manufacture. In terms of the patches themselves, we have a pilot plant facility on the University of Warwick Science Park where we can produce pre-development batches of patches. But then for clinical trial supply and ultimately looking to commercial supply, we work with a company in France, Adex Pharma, down in Dijon, who are a commercial contract manufacturing organization and specialize in patches. And so we work with them over in France to produce the patches.
I want to bring you some questions from investors. What are the milestones that investors should be looking out for over the next 6 to 12 months?
So over the next 6 to 12 months, we expect our Varenicline program to move into the clinic. That will be, we expect to be conducting those first studies in North America. And from the first study demonstrating the exposure in the clinic, the systemic exposure of Varenicline, and then from that we will direct the rest of the clinical development program. So progression into the clinic and that initial pharmacokinetic bioavailability data. Then we will also be expect to be progressing with our partner program. So further news of progression with our relationship with Cycle Pharmaceuticals. We've got a multi-product collaboration with them, so progression of programs with Cycle Pharmaceuticals. And last but not least, we have a couple of major pharma companies who are conducting feasibility and evaluation studies, and we expect to be able to convert those into more substantial commercial relationships. So progression potentially across 3 fronts for our technology utilization across those programs.
How long before you're profitable?
Well, really, our focus at the moment is on the development of the technology and products using the technology. So significant revenue will come when we get to the point of commercialization of either our Varenicline product or partner products utilizing the technology, where we would benefit from royalties on those programs. So we are several years away from significant revenue and therefore profitability. At this stage, we are a development stage company. And
how much cash runway have you got at the moment?
So we raised 2.8 million of funding last year, significantly from Mercer Asset Management, as well as British Business Bank. And we've got a runway that takes us through to the second half of this year. So we will be looking to raise further funding this year. Then that funding will be utilized ourselves to fund the progression of the clinical development program for the Varenicline TEPI patch. We have the funding in place for the first clinical trial, but then further funding required to continue that program towards phase 3.
I know that you've been involved in several companies before. What are your feelings about this company, Medherant? I mean, how excited are you by it?
I think this is a great technology that we've got. It's an excellent technology to serve the niche where there is a rationale for developing products which will benefit from transdermal drug delivery, and we've got an excellent solution for that in terms of enabling that. So it's a great opportunity here to develop our own programs and to work with companies like Cycle Pharmaceuticals, who are very entrepreneurial, committed to developing products with their focus on rare diseases, and to capitalize on those opportunities and building on, I love to see companies emerge from the UK's scientific base, and so working with David Hamilton out of the University of Warwick and a great team of scientists. So it's that emergence of a company and a technology. So I think we've got a great opportunity to capitalize on that here with Medherant.
That was such an interesting conversation about Medherant. Thanks very much indeed, John.
Thank you very much, Vivienne. It's been a great pleasure.